I was Beaumont, a 35-year-old tech engineer with what I once thought was a perfect marriage. 7 years with Amanda had started like a fairy tale full of love and connection. But things changed. I never imagined my wife would look me straight in the eyes and coldly say, "Obey me or no intimacy." That moment broke something inside me. Using our physical connection as a weapon of control left me devastated and confused. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever experienced a toxic relationship. It was at a tech conference in downtown Chicago where I first met Amanda. The conference room was packed with industry professionals, but she stood out immediately. Amanda had this commanding presence with her sleek black business suit, confident stride, and intelligent eyes that seemed to analyze everything around her. When she asked an insightful question that challenged the keynote speaker, I was impressed by her sharp mind and articulate delivery. After the session ended, I gathered my courage and introduced myself at the refreshment table. "That was a great question you asked," I said, extending my hand. "I am Beaumont." She smiled, her deep brown eyes lighting up. "Amanda," she replied, her handshake firm and confident. "Are you in system architecture too?" Our conversation flowed effortlessly as we discovered shared interests in not just technology but also hiking and classic films. By the end of the conference, we had exchanged numbers and made plans for dinner the following week. Our dating period was intense and passionate. Amanda was unlike anyone I had dated before. She was ambitious, direct, and knew exactly what she wanted in life. I found her confidence intoxicating. 6 months of dating led to weekend getaways, meeting families, and eventually my carefully planned proposal at the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, where we had taken our first vacation together. "You make me want to be a better man," I told her as I knelt with the ring. "Will you marry me?" Her yes was immediate, and the kiss that followed made my heart soar. I truly believed I had found my perfect match, my partner for life. Our wedding was everything we had dreamed of. The ceremony at a vineyard outside Seattle, surrounded by 120 guests, went flawlessly. Amanda looked breathtaking in her designer gown, and when we exchanged vows, I meant every word about loving and cherishing her forever. The 2-week honeymoon in Hawaii was filled with sunset walks, snorkeling, and nights of passionate connection that made me feel like the luckiest man alive. When we returned, we purchased our first home together in a peaceful suburban neighborhood outside Seattle. The 4-bedroom house with a spacious backyard was more than we needed, but Amanda insisted it was perfect for our future. I agreed, imagining children playing in that yard someday. My career at the software development company was taking off. I had been promoted to senior engineer within months of our wedding, which came with a substantial salary increase. Amanda celebrated my success with a surprise dinner party, inviting colleagues and friends to toast my achievement. Her pride in me filled me with joy and motivation to continue climbing the career ladder. Our evenings at home were my favorite part of married life. We would cook dinner together, share stories about our day, and often end up cuddled on the couch watching our favorite shows. Those moments of simple connection, her head resting on my shoulder as we laughed or discussed plot twists, felt like the definition of happiness to me. However, around our first anniversary, subtle changes began to appear. Amanda, who had been working as a marketing manager, received an opportunity to join a prestigious firm as their director of operations. The position came with more responsibility, higher pay, and longer hours. I supported her completely, encouraging her to take this step forward in her career. "You have always been so supportive," she said when she received the offer. "This is why I love you." As Amanda adjusted to her new role, her demeanor gradually shifted. The confident woman I had fallen in love with began to display a different kind of confidence, one tinged with control. It started small, with comments about my clothing choices, or subtle critiques of how I loaded the dishwasher. I brushed these off as stress from her new position. Then came the financial discussions. Amanda suggested we combine all our accounts and have her manage our finances since she was better with money. Being trusting and wanting to make our marriage work, I agreed. Within months, I found myself having to explain every purchase I made, no matter how small. "Did you really need to spend $40 on lunch with Jack?" she would ask, scrolling through our account transactions. "That seems excessive for a work lunch." My time also became subject to her approval. If I mentioned grabbing drinks with colleagues after work, Amanda would make plans that required me to come home early instead. When I tried to maintain my weekly basketball game with friends, she would schedule house viewings or dinner with her colleagues that conflicted. The first time Amanda used intimacy as a bargaining chip happened 18 months into our marriage. We had been discussing renovating the kitchen, a project with a significant price tag. I suggested waiting until we had saved more, but Amanda wanted to proceed immediately. "If you really loved me, you would want me to have a kitchen I enjoy cooking in," she said, her voice taking on that tone that I was beginning to recognize as manipulative. That night, when I reached for her in bed, she turned away. "I am just not in the mood. I am too upset about the kitchen situation." This pattern continued for 3 days until, exhausted and confused, I agreed to the renovation. Suddenly, Amanda was affectionate again, thanking me for seeing reason. At the time, I did not fully recognize what had happened, but looking back, that was the first clear use of intimacy as a control mechanism. Desperate to reconnect with the woman I had fallen in love with, I planned a romantic weekend getaway to Napa Valley. I booked a beautiful suite at a vineyard resort, arranged for couples, massages, and reserved tables at top restaurants. I hoped the change of scenery would help us talk openly about the issues I was beginning to notice. During our drive there, I gently broached the subject. "Amanda, I feel like things have been different between us lately. I miss how we used to be." She dismissed my concerns immediately. "You are being oversensitive. I am just busy with work. Not everything is about you, Beaumont." The weekend that I had hoped would bring us closer only highlighted the growing distance. When I suggested marriage counseling after we returned home, Amanda laughed. "We do not need a stranger telling us how to be married. Maybe you need therapy if you are so unhappy. But our marriage is fine." As another year passed, Amanda's control over my life intensified. What started as subtle suggestions had evolved into demands. One evening, while I was texting my friend Jack about plans to see a football game, Amanda asked to see my phone. "Who are you texting so intently?" she asked, her tone suspicious. When I hesitated, she became insistent. "If you have nothing to hide, why can you not show me?" Wanting to avoid conflict, I handed over my phone. Amanda scrolled through my messages, emails, and even my browser history. After that night, random phone checks became routine, always under the guise of transparency and marriage. "A husband and wife should have no secrets," she would say whenever I expressed discomfort with her invasions of privacy. My friendships began to suffer next. Amanda had never particularly liked my close friends, Jack and Thomas, claiming they were immature and a bad influence. When I would return from spending time with them, she would create arguments questioning my commitment to our marriage if I preferred their company to hers. "They just want to keep you trapped in your bachelor mindset," she insisted. "They are jealous of what we have." Eventually, maintaining these friendships became so difficult that I saw them less and less. Jack reached out several times concerned about my withdrawal, but I made excuses about being busy with work and home responsibilities. The truth was, spending time with friends had become more trouble than it seemed worth. Work boundaries eroded next. Amanda began calling me multiple times throughout the day, expecting immediate responses. She created rules about when I should leave the office regardless of project deadlines or team needs. If I stayed late at work, she would question my commitment to our relationship or insinuate I might be seeing someone else. "If you are not home by 6:30, do not expect me to wait up," became a common threat. Perhaps most painfully, Amanda began to criticize me in front of others. At dinner parties with friends or family gatherings, she would tell embarrassing stories or make comments about my shortcomings, always with a laugh, as if it were just good-natured teasing. "Beaumont cannot even change a light bulb without instructions, or I basically have to manage his entire schedule, or nothing would get done." What others might have seen as playful banter felt deeply undermining. When I addressed it privately, Amanda would accuse me of being too sensitive or unable to take a joke. Everyone else was laughing. "Why do you always have to make everything so serious?" The manipulation of our physical relationship became increasingly explicit. One night, after declining an invitation to attend a work function with her, Amanda stated plainly, "Fine. But do not expect any action in the bedroom tonight." I was stunned by her directness. "Are you seriously using sex as a punishment?" "I am just not interested in being intimate with someone who does not support my career," she replied coldly. This pattern repeated itself in various scenarios. When I questioned a large purchase she had made without discussing it with me, intimacy was withheld. When I wanted to visit my parents for their anniversary, instead of attending her college friend's wedding, physical affection disappeared for over a week. During an argument about her criticizing my cooking in front of her parents, she said the words that would later echo in my mind. Maybe if you were better at satisfying me in other ways, I would not need to point out your failures in the kitchen. The most manipulative incident involved my student loan debt. Before we married, Amanda had offered to help pay off my remaining student loans, using money she had inherited from her grandmother. I had initially refused, but she insisted it was an investment in our future together. 2 years into our marriage, this act of generosity became ammunition. After everything I have done for you, including paying off your debt, this is how you repay me. By refusing to attend this dinner with my boss, she said during one particularly heated argument. These tactics slowly eroded my self-esteem and sense of autonomy. I began second-guessing my decisions, my worth, and even my perceptions of reality. Was I being unreasonable? Was I truly the selfish, inadequate husband she sometimes made me out to be? The confident man I had once been was disappearing, replaced by someone anxious to avoid conflict and desperate for approval. My younger sister Lisa was the first to express concern. During a rare lunch without Amanda present, she observed, "You seem different, Beau. You hardly talk anymore, and you keep checking your phone like you are afraid of missing a message from her." Marriage involves compromises, I defended weakly. Compromise is not the same as submission, Lisa replied, her eyes filled with worry. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? I dismissed her concerns, but her words lingered. My mother noticed changes, too, during our monthly family dinners. "You look tired, sweetheart," she said, touching my cheek in that gentle way mothers do. "Is everything okay at home?" Again, I deflected, unwilling to admit, even to myself, that my marriage had become something I did not recognize. At work, my colleague Jordan commented on my transformation. "You used to be the first to suggest grabbing beers after a successful project. Now you practically run to your car at 5 o'clock. What happened to you, man?" These outside perspectives created cracks in the false reality I had been living in. Maybe things were not normal. Maybe what I was experiencing was not just typical marital adjustment, but something more problematic. In a last-ditch effort to save our marriage, I once again suggested counseling, this time with more insistence. To my surprise, Amanda agreed, perhaps sensing my growing awareness. The counseling sessions, however, became another arena for manipulation. Amanda charmed our therapist, Dr. Reynolds, presenting herself as the dedicated wife dealing with an emotionally distant husband. She would cry at strategic moments, describing her efforts to connect with me and my apparent resistance. "I just want us to be close again," she would say tearfully. "But he keeps pushing me away." When I tried to explain the control dynamics and emotional manipulation, my examples sounded petty or were skillfully reframed by Amanda as misunderstandings. After our third session, Dr. Reynolds suggested meeting with me alone. In that private session, he asked pointed questions about our relationship dynamics, specifically about control, isolation, and intimacy as leverage. His questions helped me see patterns I had been blind to or unwilling to acknowledge. "Beaumont," he said carefully, "some of what you are describing sounds like emotional abuse. It is more common than people realize, and it can happen to anyone, regardless of gender or background." His words both shocked and relieved me. There was a name for what I was experiencing. I was not crazy or oversensitive. What was happening was real, and it was wrong. Our 7th wedding anniversary arrived on a crisp autumn evening. Despite everything, I still held hope that our marriage could be saved. I left work early, stopping to buy Amanda's favorite flowers and a bottle of expensive champagne. I spent hours preparing her favorite meal, beef Wellington with truffle mashed potatoes, and set the table with our best china and candlelight. 7:30 came and went. Then 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. My calls went to voicemail. The carefully prepared food grew cold. Finally, at 10:15, I heard the garage door open. Amanda walked in dressed immaculately in a new outfit I had never seen, smelling faintly of wine and an unfamiliar cologne. She seemed surprised to see me waiting, as if she had completely forgotten the significance of the date. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice strained. "I have been trying to reach you all night." "I had drinks with the new marketing team," she replied dismissively. "Why are you making such a big deal about it? It is our anniversary, Amanda." "I made dinner, which is now ruined." She glanced at the cold food and elaborate table setting with indifference. "You should have texted me if you were planning something special." "I did. Multiple times." She checked her phone. "Oh, I must have missed them." We were in a noisy bar. The casual dismissal of our anniversary, coupled with her obvious lie and lack of apology, ignited something in me. Years of suppressed frustration and hurt came rushing to the surface. "This marriage is not working," I said quietly. Amanda's expression changed instantly from indifference to anger. "What are you talking about? We are fine." "No, we are not. You control every aspect of my life. You have isolated me from my friends, you monitor my movements, you criticize me constantly, and you use intimacy as a weapon. That is not a marriage. That is a hostage situation." Her face hardened. "So this is about sex. You men are all the same. Is that all I am to you? This is not about sex. This is about respect and love, neither of which exist in this relationship anymore." She stepped closer, her voice cold and deliberate. "Let me make something very clear to you, Beaumont. In this marriage, things work on my terms. If you want any kind of physical relationship with me, you need to obey my rules. It is that simple. Obey me or no intimacy. Your choice." Those words, spoken so clearly and without any attempt to disguise the manipulation, became my moment of clarity. I looked at this woman, once the center of my world, and saw a stranger, someone who viewed love as transactional and relationships as power dynamics to be won. "I need some air," I said, grabbing my jacket and leaving her standing in our dining room. I drove for hours that night, eventually parking at a lookout point overlooking the city. As the lights twinkled below, I reflected on our years together, trying to pinpoint when things had changed, when love had become control. I thought about Dr. Reynolds' words about emotional abuse and recognized the truth in them. More importantly, I thought about who I had become. The confident, independent man who had once pursued his passions, maintained close friendships, and spoke his mind had been replaced by someone who walked on eggshells, isolated and diminished. I pulled out the journal I kept in my glove compartment, a habit from before my marriage that Amanda had mocked as sentimental. Flipping through entries from the past few years, I saw the gradual transformation documented in my own words. Early entries were full of joy and plans for the future. Later ones revealed doubt, confusion, and increasing unhappiness. An entry from 2 years ago particularly stood out. "Sometimes I feel like I am disappearing. Like pieces of who I am are being carved away to fit the shape Amanda wants me to be." Is this what marriage is supposed to feel like? The answer I now knew with certainty was no. I returned home at dawn, my mind clear for the first time in years. Over the next week, I quietly began preparing. I spoke with a lawyer to understand my options. I opened a separate bank account and transferred a portion of my salary into it. I researched apartments and secured a small one-bedroom unit not far from my office. When I was ready, I sat Amanda down for the conversation that would end our marriage. She sensed the change in me immediately, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "We need to talk," I began, my voice steady. "About your behavior at our anniversary. Yes, we do. I deserve an apology." "No, Amanda. About our marriage and why it needs to end." Her face flushed with anger. "End? What are you talking about?" Calmly. I laid out the patterns of control and manipulation that had defined our relationship. I explained how her behavior had affected me, and why I could no longer live that way. Her reaction shifted rapidly between tactics. First came denial. "You are imagining things. I have only ever tried to help you be better." Then tears. "How can you do this to me? After everything I have done for you." When those failed to move me, came the threats. "You will lose everything. I will make sure everyone knows what a terrible husband you have been." Finally, when she realized I remained unmoved, she tried her ultimate leverage. "If you stay, things will be different. I promise. We can go back to how we were at the beginning," she said, moving closer and touching my arm suggestively. I stepped back, my resolve firm. Keep it, Amanda. Keep the intimacy forever. I do not need it, not with these strings attached. Not anymore. The shock on her face was profound. Her final weapon had been rendered powerless. 2 days later, I moved into my apartment. It was small, sparsely furnished, and nothing like the luxurious home I had shared with Amanda, but it was mine. Space to breathe, to think, to begin rebuilding. The aftermath was as difficult as I had anticipated. Amanda told mutual friends and colleagues that I had abandoned her without warning. Her family, who had always adored me, now treated me as a villain. The divorce proceedings became contentious, with Amanda fighting for every asset despite her higher income. Those first months alone were a mixture of grief and relief. There were nights I questioned my decision, wondering if I had given up too easily or if I could have tried harder to fix things. But in the quiet moments of honesty, I knew I had made the only choice that would allow me to reclaim myself. My healing journey began with therapy sessions twice weekly. Dr. Patel, my new therapist, specialized in recovery from emotional abuse and helped me understand the dynamics that had allowed the relationship to develop as it had. She helped me recognize that my desire to please and tendency to take responsibility for others' feelings had made me vulnerable to Amanda's controlling behavior. Healing is not linear, Dr. Patel would remind me when I felt I was making no progress. Some days you will feel strong. Others, you will doubt everything. Both are part of the process. Slowly, I began to reconnect with the parts of myself I had abandoned. I joined a weekend hiking group, rediscovering my love for the outdoors that had been suppressed during my marriage. The physical exertion of climbing mountain trails became a form of therapy, each summit a small victory in reclaiming my independence. I also picked up my guitar again, an instrument that had sat untouched in its case for years after Amanda had complained about the noise. The familiar feel of strings beneath my fingers brought comfort, and I found myself writing songs about freedom and self-discovery. Reconnecting with friends proved both easier and harder than I expected. Jack and Thomas welcomed me back without judgment, though I sensed their unspoken "I told you so" in the beginning. My sister Lisa became my strongest supporter, often bringing home cooked meals to my apartment and sitting with me during difficult days. "I have my brother back," she said one evening as we shared pizza and watched basketball. "I missed this you." Building new boundaries became an essential part of my recovery. I learned to recognize when I was saying yes out of fear or obligation rather than genuine desire. I practiced the uncomfortable art of saying no and standing firm in my decisions. Each small assertion of my needs strengthened my sense of self. Boundaries are not selfish, Dr. Patel emphasized. They are necessary for healthy relationships. They define where you end and others begin. 6 months after moving out, the divorce was finalized. Seeing Amanda in court that day, dressed immaculately, and wearing the cold, composed expression I had come to know so well, I felt a surprising sense of peace. The person I had once believed was my soulmate now seemed like a character from another life, a story that belonged to someone else. It was around this time that I decided to try something completely new. I signed up for a cooking class, something I had always been interested in but had never pursued. The 6-week course focused on international cuisine and met every Wednesday evening in a local culinary school. On the first night, as I awkwardly attempted to julienne vegetables, the woman at the station beside me laughed. Not unkindly, but with warmth that invited me to laugh at myself too. "First time with a professional knife?" she asked, her green eyes crinkling at the corners. "That obvious," I replied, looking at my uneven carrot pieces. "Here," she said, demonstrating the proper technique. "Hold it like this and keep your fingers curled under." Her name was Elaine, a pediatric nurse with a passion for food and travel. Unlike my first meeting with Amanda, which had been charged with immediate attraction, my connection with Elaine developed gradually. We became cooking partners then, friends who would grab coffee after class to discuss recipes and eventually our lives. What struck me most about Elaine was how comfortable silence felt with her. There was no pressure to perform or entertain, no walking on eggshells. She listened when I spoke and shared her own thoughts without dominating the conversation. When I eventually told her about my marriage, she showed compassion without pity. That sounds incredibly difficult, she said simply. You are very brave to have left. 3 months of friendship passed before our relationship began to shift toward something more. I was hesitant, still carrying wounds from my marriage, and unsure if I was ready to trust again. Elaine never pushed, allowing me to set the pace of our developing relationship. Our first date was a hike, followed by a picnic I had prepared with my newly acquired cooking skills. Sitting on a blanket overlooking a lake, sharing food and conversation that flowed effortlessly, I felt the first stirrings of what healthy attraction could be. The most striking difference between Elaine and Amanda became apparent in how we communicated about needs and desires. Where Amanda had used manipulation and leverage, Elaine was refreshingly direct and respectful. I like you, Beaumont, she said during our third date. I would like to see where this goes, but I also want you to know, I understand if you need more time. This straightforward expression of interest, without pressure or expectation, was revolutionary to me. Over time, I learned that healthy relationships involve honest communication, mutual respect, and the freedom to be yourself without fear of rejection or punishment. When our relationship eventually became physical, it was a revelation. Intimacy with Elaine was an expression of connection and joy, never a bargaining chip or weapon. The contrast helped heal some of the deepest wounds from my marriage. Intimacy should be about mutual desire and care, Elaine said one night, as we lay together, her head on my chest. Nothing else. As our relationship deepened, I introduced Elaine to my family and friends. Watching her interact with them, seeing her genuine interest in their lives and her respect for my relationships reinforced what I had come to understand about healthy partnerships. They expand your world rather than shrink it. 2 years after leaving Amanda, I unexpectedly ran into her at a technology conference in Boston. I had been sent to represent my company, now working at a new firm where I had found success and recognition. Seeing her across the conference hall, I braced myself for anxiety or anger, but instead felt a surprising calm. She approached me during a break, her expression difficult to read. You look well, Beaumont. Thank you. I am well, I replied, meaning it completely. I heard you are seeing someone new. Yes, I am. Her name is Elaine. Amanda nodded, a flicker of something crossing her face. I sometimes think about us. What went wrong? I think we both know what went wrong, I said, gently but firmly. After a moment of uncomfortable silence, she asked, Are you happy now? Yes, I answered without hesitation. I am. As she walked away, I realized I truly wished her well, hoped she would find her own path to growth and healthier relationships. The resentment that had once burned inside me had been replaced by understanding, and finally freedom. The greatest lesson from my journey was learning the difference between love and control. True love empowers, it does not diminish. It creates space for growth rather than constraints for compliance. It accepts rather than molds. Most importantly, I learned that healthy love must begin with self-respect and clear boundaries. I also came to understand that leaving an unhealthy relationship is not failure, but courage. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from what hurts us, even when that path is frightening and uncertain. As I write this now, sitting in the small house Elaine and I recently purchased together, I am struck by how different my life has become. Our relationship is not perfect. We have disagreements and challenges like any couple, but they are navigated with respect, honesty, and the knowledge that we are on the same team. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you opens the door to the best thing you never knew existed. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that ultimately led to something better in your life? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming challenges. Remember that you deserve relationships that lift you up, not tear you down. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to choose your own happiness, even when that choice is the hardest one to make.